Welcome to the 8th episode of Global Heat Map. This is an initiative by USI of India where we take you through important international and strategic issues of last week, basically to update various candidates who are appearing for various competitive exams. In today's episode, we'll talk about the election result of USA, India-Canada diplomatic standoff. Israel has sacked its defense minister, we'll talk about it. In Russia-Ukraine war, we find the North Korean troops appearing in Kursk. Pakistan has extended the tenure of his army chief. Bangladesh finds it difficult to pay for electricity. And Kashmir Assembly is asking for special status of Jammu and Kashmir. Now, coming on to the elections. President Trump has been elected as the 47th president of USA with a thumping majority and an unprecedented mandate wherein he has got the control of the Congress as well as the House. The major issues have been discussed in various media forums, especially the political issues. Today, I will be concentrating on the strategic implications on the rest of the world. Sufficient to say that President Trump's victory came on the agenda of America facing unprecedented inflation, also very high cost of living, unprecedented debt, that is $34 trillion, and immigration issues, especially the unauthorized immigrations. And therefore, if we look at the causes and connect it with the international scene, the important thing which emerges is that in one of the reasons of inflation in USA is also the ongoing two wars. So let's analyze as to how they are going to be impacted. First is the case of Russia-Ukraine war. I think President Trump has come with a mandate that he is going to stop wars. So obviously, his efforts will not be to escalate war, and therefore we don't expect that he will allow Ukraine to use its weapons deep into a Russian territory. At the same time, he will be looking for some kind of negotiations, even if it amounts to compromise on some Ukrainian territory. It is also expected that to push through negotiations, he may compromise on the Ukrainian inclusion into NATO by trying to promise Russia that that will get delayed indefinitely, because then only there will be a meaningful negotiations. So this could be one of the methodology which he could perhaps look at the negotiations. Also, as far as the arms supply is concerned, although arms dealers will continue to push for more arms supply, but I think he will encourage more Europeans to buy the arms so that the industry profits can also continue, and also encourage others in Indo-Pacific to buy more arms, including Taiwan and others, to be able to compensate that part. But otherwise, I think he will look towards closing down the Russia-Ukraine war, or at least some kind of truce there. As far as Israel is concerned, he is a staunch supporter of Israel. He is the one who shifted the capital to Jerusalem. He was also the architect of the Abraham Accord. So therefore, his support to Israel will continue. And in that context, I think if he has to stop the war, his recipe to stop the war will be more pressure on Iran. And that could be in terms of economic pressure and maybe some threats to make sure that Iran also takes control of its proxies and does not go beyond a point. And perhaps that would be an area where he would work on with Netanyahu. As far as what is happening in Gaza is concerned, maybe that he would like more negotiations on the ceasefire as well. And in earlier regime, Netanyahu could defy uh, President Biden, but in the present situation, when Trump comes to power, I think he will be a much stronger president with a much stronger mandate, and therefore it may not be all that easy for Netanyahu to defy what President Trump says. So that may perhaps lead him to uh, the promise which he has made in the elections. Now, coming on to various implications of the other countries, let's talk about India. The relationship of the previous term of President Trump and his equation with Prime Minister Modi would gives a lot of hope that the relationship will continue to be what it is. There would be some concerns as far as tariffs are concerned and the visas are concerned, but as far as tariff is concerned, my take is that we will be at par with everybody else. Obviously, he needs he is of a view of America first. So American interest will be taken care of, and he will put interest of everybody else in the same line when it comes to amounting to traffic, whether friends or foes. So therefore, we will get also our share of tariffs depending upon what is the American interest at that point of time. Uh, as far as the talent is concerned, I mean, the credible talent certainly will find way in United States, and illegal immigrants, I don't think there are many Indians who are looking for it, and therefore, apparently that won't affect India much. It's more to do with its immediate neighbors. As far as China is concerned, they are little worried or concerned about additional tariffs because the trade war was there in Trump 1.0 era. There is no reason why there will be no trade war in Trump 2.0 era. As far as Russia is concerned, I have already spoken. He would like to better relations with Russia and has certainly a slightly better equation with President Putin. But as far as Russians are concerned, they are also looking at their own national interest, and that's why they have not congratulated President Trump so far. And they have also postponed it to say that we will see as to how he acts, and then only we will engage with him. As far as other countries are concerned, especially Europe, Europe will be slightly nervous because he will insist that Europe spends more on defense and be able to look after its own defense purchases, and he will also insist that more defense purchases are made from USA. At the same time, it is seen, which is also a statement of fact, that Europeans after Second World War continued to reduce their military strength and military spending, and they were hardly spending anything, and therefore their capability to face Russia or any other military challenge has reduced, and that perhaps, and they were overly dependent on USA, and that's why they had to make a lot of compromises in favor of USA, whether it is in terms of energy or otherwise. So I think Trump would ask them to spend more. The other major issue is the Taiwan issue and the Indo-Pacific region. The posturing in Indo-Pacific will continue. As far as Taiwan is concerned, I think his idea will be that Taiwan should be able to defend itself by purchasing more weapons from USA, and I think he will be looking at more weapon sale not only to Taiwan but to Philippines and or other countries, Japan, South Korea, who are impacted by the aggression of Chinese. Uh, as far as the India-Canada relations are concerned, they were again, they saw a dip in last week. There were many attacks on Hindu temples, which were a cause of concern. MEA has criticized it. MEA has given a lot of strong statements. Their diplomats have been called, including the fact that Prime Minister Modi also spoke about it. That means that the diplomatic relations certainly are in the lowest ebb as far as these two countries are concerned. And it is basically kind courtesies Justin Trudeau, who has been very soft on the Khalistani elements, and even he did condemn some attacks on Hindu temples, but he never named who did it, that is, the Khalistani terrorists. He didn't talk about them. Also, there was a concern about the intimidation of Indian diplomats, and India has asked for so many extraditions of the criminals who are housed in Canada, and Canada continues to host them. And the recent case was of an involvement of a CBSA staffer, that is the Canadian agency, in killing of one of the Shaurya Chakra winner in India, that is in Punjab. And we have asked for the extradition, and Canada, with the normal excuse, is giving that okay, there is no evidence, although irrefutable evidences have been given. As far as Israel is concerned, there was a fair amount of protests on Netanyahu's decision to sack Defense Minister Gallant. The reasons were very simple, that Prime Minister Netanyahu wanted to save his chair. Basically, it is political consideration. And Defense Minister Gallant, he has been critical of Netanyahu on so many counts, especially 2-3 major issues like his way of prosecuting war. Gallant was more for negotiations and a temporary ceasefire to get the hostages back, which Netanyahu was not too keen. Similarly, he was also critical of the judiciary reforms, and also was interested in investigating as to what happened on 7th of October, and these two things were uncomfortable to the hardliners and Netanyahu, and that's why he fell apart with Gallant, and he has sacked him. Israelis have not liked it, and therefore there have been protests there. The new developments which Israel did was that they did launch some kind of ground raid in Syria to pick up some of the commanders of Hezbollah, or commanders linked with Hezbollah. Similarly, in Lebanon, they have picked up a naval officer of Lebanon with alleged link with Hezbollah. At the same time, Iran had threatened that they will attack Israel and respond to whatever attack which Israel had done, or air attack which Israel had done on Iran. In that context, Pentagon had done some kind of defensive deployment in a manner that they had sent additional aircrafts, bombers, and some air defense equipment into Middle East, and strengthened their defenses in Middle East. As far as Russia-Ukraine war is concerned, Russia has ratified the defense pact with North Korea. At the same time, the North Korean soldiers are in Kursk region, and here I must explain as to why Kursk region, because the pact indicates that North Korea and Russia will help each other whenever they are attacked. Now, Kursk region is the only area where Russia has been attacked, and that is why a deployment of North Korean troops in Kursk region makes legal sense as far as their stand in United Nations is concerned. As Pakistan, as we know, military controls the government and continues to, sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly, and therefore the army chief has got his term extended from 3 years to 5 years. It is an irony that no Prime Minister of Pakistan has ever been able to fulfill his tenure of 5 years, but every army chief will certainly get 5 years with this amendment. As far as their other friend is concerned, Chinese have warned them, and they are concerned about safety of workers. Their ambassador did speak about it, and perhaps Pakistan will have to take some more measures to protect Chinese, because that can be a sticking point as far as further investments in CPEC is concerned. Bangladesh finds it difficult economically. Changing regime was one part of it, but managing affairs is another. And now they find economically in a very awkward situation that they can't even pay for their electricity. And Adani's have said that their Goda plant will not be able to supply electricity if they do not clear their $850 million debt. Uh, uh, we are given to understand that Bangladesh is trying to muster up some money to pay some part of it to avoid the crisis. Internally, we do see that Kashmir Assembly has met, which is a good democratic process, and they did pass an uncomfortable resolution to say that the special status of Kashmir should get back. We will have to see, wait and see as to what it means, because it is irreversible kind of demand, for the simple reason because it has been passed by the central government, passed under the rules and regulations, and has been ratified by the Supreme Court. So I don't think there is a case to revive a temporary clause which was put at some point of time and does not justify being put now, now that Kashmir is on the path of development. So these were the major developments this week. We will come back to you again next week with the developments of next week. Thank you very much.